Blue leaves the house wearing a slightly unusual hat. Not a crime, barely even a fashion event. It is just a hat with the confidence of a minor announcement. Then one person glances at him for half a second. Blue's brain does not file this under maybe they saw a hat. It immediately rents a stadium. Welcome to the part of your mind that thinks every room has a secret panel of judges hiding behind the plants. You enter the cafe. Your brain entered the talent show. Nobody announced a trial. Nobody brought a gavel. Nobody even looked organized enough to judge breakfast. Your nervous system still says, please stand for the verdict. This is why caring what people think can feel so automatic. Your brain is old, dramatic, and terrible at checking the guest list before starting a social emergency. For most of human history, reputation was not just vibes, it was access. If people trusted you, included you, and wanted you around, life got much easier. Access to help, access to food, access to protection, access to not being the guy alone with suspicious forest noises and the stick he is pretending is enough. So the brain learned the rule. If the group disapproves, pay attention. That rule probably helped our ancestors. It also makes modern hat-based anxiety extremely annoying. Useful rule, slightly annoying roommate. The social brain means well, but it has the energy of someone checking every window because one leaf moved outside. Because now, the same system activates when someone pauses before replying, or when your joke lands with the enthusiasm of wet cardboard. No danger, who alert anyway? Blue thinks they noticed the hat. Then, they hated the hat. Then, society has collapsed because of the hat. This is not a thought. This is a trilogy. This is not intelligence. This is a smoke alarm that learns social media. It detects one tiny signal and immediately asks whether your whole personality should evacuate. One reason it feels so real is the spotlight effect. We often overestimate how much other people notice our actions, our appearance, and our awkward little moments. Blue feels like the main character, but everyone else is also trapped in their own badly lit documentary, worrying about their face, their voice, and their own weird hat. That person who glanced at your hat may have been judging you, possible, or they may have been thinking about soup, taxis, parking, or whether they left the stove on. Your anxiety always assumes the courtroom version. It rarely considers soup. Soup is not dramatic enough for the anxiety department, so it gets rejected in the first draft. Then comes comparison. Your brain does not just ask, am I okay? It asks, am I okay compared with them, their haircut, their confidence, and their suspiciously calm posture. This can be useful when you need information. Less useful when you turn a stranger's haircut into a personal performance review with charts, conclusions, and emotional damage. Blue sees someone confident and instantly creates a report. They are winning. I am unfinished furniture. Notice how fast the brain turns observation into autobiography. The report is not necessarily true. It is just loud. And loud thoughts are very good at pretending they are accurate thoughts, wearing a serious little badge. Now at the modern problem, online signals. A room used to contain the people in the room. Now your pocket can summon an invisible crowd before breakfast. A tiny reaction becomes a giant scoreboard. A missing reaction becomes a documentary about your decline. The phone does not say this. Your brain adds narration. Blue posts one harmless photo, then checks it like he's monitoring a spaceship launch. Refreshing the screen suddenly feels like mission control for his self-worth. Refresh, refresh, refresh. The Sam becomes a tiny unpaid employee. It works overtime, receives no benefits, and somehow still fails to create inner peace. Here is the trap. The brain treats public attention like proof of personal value. More attention feels like more value. Less attention feels like a tiny social eviction notice. But attention is messy. People notice strange things, forget important things, and sometimes tap the wrong button while eating chips. This is not a stable measurement system. So if you build your self-worth on the crowd's tiny signals, congratulations, you have outsourced your soul to weather. And the weather does not read your mission statement. And the weather is not even consistent. One day it is sunshine. One day it is silence. One day somebody likes a post from 3 years ago and nobody knows why. This is where the invisible audience gets dangerous. Not because people are watching, but because Blue starts performing for people who are not even in the building. He changes the way he laughs. He edits the way he stands. He even walks like his knees require public approval. The hut has become a full-body committee meeting. At this point, the hut is no longer the problem. The problem is that Blue has hired the whole planet as his stylist, therapist, judge, and unpaid brand consultant. So let's rewind. Same sidewalk, same hat, same glance. But this time, instead of opening a stadium, Blue opens a much smaller file called Maybe. Same hat, same glance. But this time, Blue asks a better question. Not the most comforting question, a better one. The brain hates this, which is how you know it matters. Not, do they approve of me? Try, did I actually get useful information? Because feelings are real experiences, but they are not always reliable courtroom witnesses. A glance is information. It is not a tribe vote. It might mean something. It might mean almost nothing. Your job is not to turn every pixel into prophecy. Second question, whose opinion actually gets a seat? Because your brain may invite the entire planet, but your inner theater does not need unlimited seating. Your brain may invite everyone. You do not have to honor every reservation. Some people can be heard from the hallway. Some can stay outside with snacks. Give seats to people who know you, want good things for you, and can be honest without using your confidence as a chew toy. That is a very different audience. Everyone else can stand outside the theater eating soup, not because they are bad people, because not every random opinion deserves front row emotional real estate. Third question, what would I do if nobody saw this? Not forever, just for one decision. Remove the audience for a moment and see whether your own preference is still alive. Not forever. We are social animals, not decorative lamps. Other people matter. Belonging matters. Feedback matters. But none of that means every glance gets a steering wheel. But for one decision, remove the imaginary audience and see what remains. Sometimes what remains is quieter, simpler, and weirdly less interested in your hat. Maybe you still change the hat. Fine. Taste exists. Personal style is allowed to evolve without turning into a 5-part crisis documentary. But now you changed it because you chose to. Not because a ghost comedy coughed in your imagination. That difference looks small. It feels huge. Fourth question. Did anyone actually say something, or did my brain write the review itself? Because the mind is extremely talented at forging rude comments. Sometimes the harshest comment section is not online. It is renting space behind your forehead, posting blank complaints, and somehow still getting your attention. You do not need to silence the social brain. It is trying to protect you. The problem is not that it cares. The problem is that it occasionally brings fireworks to a toaster. You just need to stop letting it turn one glance into a national election. One look is not a referendum. One awkward moment is not a constitutional crisis. So the next time you feel judged, shrink the audience. Ask what you actually know. Ask whose opinion matters. Ask what you would choose without the invisible courtroom. Then wear the hat, change the hat, burn the hat, metaphorically. Just do not let the hat become your entire identity crisis. That is a lot of responsibility for fabric. Other people's opinions are information. They are not always instructions. You can listen, place a note on the shelf, and decide whether it actually belongs in your life. And not every glance is a verdict. Sometimes it is just a person passing by, thinking about soup. Let the courtroom close before it charges you rent. Blue keeps walking, hat and all, with a much smaller audience in his head.